A poor little girl clutches the doctor's shirt and pleads, "Please, save my mum. I promise I'll pay you when I grow up." Hearing this, a young billionaire stops immediately, shocked to discover who the mother is. The corridor of New York General Hospital seemed endless. Quick footsteps, the creaking of wheelchairs, and tense voices mingled that Monday morning. A sharp cry cut through the air, silencing conversations for a second. It was the cry of a child, desperate, sincere, piercing even the hardest heart. "Please, save my mommy. I promise I'll pay you when I grow up." The thin, trembling voice came from Lily, a little girl with brown hair and green eyes who could barely reach the doctor's waist. Small for her 4 years, she held onto his white coat with such force that her knuckles were white. Her tiny hands trembled, refusing to release the fabric, as if that alone could stop them from taking her mother away. Dr. Thomas looked down, trying to maintain his composure. It was his 10th shift in a row, yet that little girl had managed to break through his professional defenses. "We'll do everything we can, sweetheart. Now I need you to be brave, okay?" he said, gently freeing her hands from his coat. "Nurse Jenny will stay with you for a little while." A woman in a blue uniform approached, but Lily drew back. Her red, puffy eyes stayed fixed on the direction where they had wheeled the stretcher. She clutched a worn, dirty brown teddy bear to her chest, probably her only comfort at that moment. On the other side of the wide corridor, James Carter looked at his watch. At 9:15, he had a meeting with the company board, and the cut on his arm, caused by a silly kitchen accident, was taking longer than expected to be treated. 35 years old, wearing a pristine suit despite the blood stain on the sleeve, and his phone wouldn't stop buzzing with urgent emails. But then that cry, James couldn't ignore it. Something in the child's desperation made him turn his head. Maybe it was the familiar tone of her voice, or just the purity of a child's distress. Whatever the reason, he found himself frozen, watching the girl now curled in a corner, whispering softly to her teddy bear. "It's none of your business," he thought, trying to refocus on the email he was typing. His assistant had already rescheduled the meeting for 10 more. Just a few more minutes and he'd be out of there. But the girl's whispers kept reaching his ears. "Mr. Bear, Mommy's going to be okay, right? She's just sleeping, like when she takes those medicines that make her sad." James swallowed hard. He put his phone away and, as if pulled by an invisible force, approached the girl. "Hello," he said, trying to sound as unintimidating as possible. "Your bear has a cool name." Lily raised her eyes. Suspicious, she wiped her tears with the back of her hands, leaving streaks of dirt on her freckled face. "Mr. Bear doesn't like strangers," she replied seriously. "Oh, I'm sorry then," James gave a slight smile. "I just wanted to check if you two need anything. Water, maybe, or hot chocolate." The mention of chocolate made her eyes light up for a moment, but they quickly dimmed again. "Mommy says I can't accept things from strangers." "Your mom is right." He nodded, sitting at a respectful distance. "My name's James." "What's yours?" "Lily," she answered after a pause, still wary. "Lily Morgan." Morgan. A name James hadn't heard in 5 years, but it still tightened his chest. Coincidence, he thought. It had to be. "That's a very pretty name, Lily. Where's your dad?" The question slipped out automatically, and James realized too late it might be delicate. "I don't have a dad," she answered simply, without emotion, like someone stating they don't have an umbrella. "It's just me and Mommy." Before James could say anything, a commotion drew both their attentions. Doctors were rushing to the emergency area. Someone was shouting instructions. The double doors swung open briefly, and James caught a glimpse just for a second of the face of the woman on the stretcher. The world stopped. It was as if the air had been sucked from his lungs. That profile, even pale and bruised, was unmistakable. The same delicate nose, the same lips he had kissed so many times. The red hair spread across the pillow, shorter now, but still. Rebecca. The name escaped his lips like a sigh. Lily looked at him, startled. "You know my mommy." James's heart pounded against his ribs. He looked at the girl again. Really looked. And it was like staring into a distorted mirror through time. The same green eyes he saw every morning in his own reflection. The same eyebrow shape, the same determined chin. 4 years old. Exactly how long it had been since Rebecca Morgan had vanished from his life without a trace. "I believe I do," he answered, voice shaky, trying to control the tremor in his hands. "We were friends a long time ago." Lily seemed to consider that information, hugging Mr. Bear tighter. "She never talked about you." The simple words hit James like a punch to the gut, but he tried not to show it. Of course Rebecca wouldn't talk about him. She had disappeared for a reason that now seemed to be 4 years old, with brown hair and freckles on her nose. "What happened to her, Lily?" he asked, trying to keep his voice calm. The girl sniffled, tears returning to her eyes. "The car crashed. It was raining a lot, and Mommy was sad again. She drove fast, and then the car spun and hit a tree." Each word came out between sobs. "I had my seatbelt on, like she always tells me, but Mommy hit her head and there was so much blood." James felt a lump in his throat. Imagining Rebecca hurt, bleeding, with this child, possibly his daughter, watching it all was too much. "Did you get hurt?" he asked, noticing a small bandage on the girl's arm. "Just a scratch," Lily replied, trying to sound brave. "The ambulance man said I was really strong, but Mommy wouldn't wake up." Without thinking, James moved closer and sat beside her. "Your mum is strong too, Lily. The doctors are taking care of her now." "But what if they can't fix her?" Her green eyes, so identical to his own, were full of fear. "I don't have money to pay. I broke my piggy bank last week to buy ice cream." James felt his heart tighten. The innocence of such an adult worry coming from a child so small was devastating. "Don't worry about that. The doctors won't stop helping your mum because of money. But Mommy always says everything costs money. When I get sick, she cries in secret because pills are expensive." The information landed like lead in James's stomach. Rebecca, whom he had known as a young woman full of dreams and ambitions, reduced to secretly crying because she couldn't afford medication. The Rebecca he knew was too proud to ask for help, even when she needed it. Apparently, that hadn't changed. As he tried to process all this, a nurse approached them. "Are you related to the girl?" she asked, looking at James suspiciously. The words got stuck. What was he, exactly? A stranger, a friend from the past, a father who didn't even know he existed in that role until 15 minutes ago. "He knows my mommy," Lily answered for him. "They were friends." The nurse still didn't seem entirely convinced. "Social services are coming to stay with the girl while her mother is in surgery. If you're not a relative, you'll have to—" "Surgery?" James interrupted. "How is Rebecca's condition?" The woman frowned, clearly not liking his tone. "I can't disclose medical information to non-family members, sir." "Of course," James nodded, reining in his frustration. "May I speak with the attending physician? Dr. Thomas is in the operating room now. As soon as we have news, someone will update the family." Family. The word echoed in James's mind with new weight. He looked at Lily, clutching her teddy bear as if it were a shield against the world. Perhaps it was. "I don't want to go with strangers," the girl mumbled when the nurse walked away. "I want to wait for my mommy here." James made a decision. He didn't know exactly what he was doing, but he knew he couldn't leave this girl alone, not when there was a chance she was his daughter. "Hey, Lily," he said, kneeling to her level. "How about I stay here with you? We can wait for your mom together, what do you think?" Her green eyes studied him, as though calculating whether she could trust him. "Mr. Bear is hungry," she finally said. "I'm hungry too." James smiled, relieved by the small opening. "Then let's fix that. There's a cafeteria in the hospital. We can get something for you and Mr. Bear. What do you two like to eat?" "Waffles," she answered promptly. "With chocolate sauce. Mr. Bear likes strawberries." "Waffles with chocolate and strawberries it is, then." As they walked to the cafeteria, Lily hesitantly took James's hand. Her small, warm hand triggered in him a wave of protectiveness he had never felt before. It was a strange, powerful feeling, both unfamiliar and somehow familiar, as if part of him had always been waiting for this moment without knowing it. In the cafeteria, James watched Lily devour the waffles as though she hadn't eaten in days. Between bites, she talked about her school, her favorite cartoons, and how her mom always told her bedtime stories. Each new detail was a piece of the puzzle of Rebecca's last 5 years, and possibly the life of a daughter he never knew he had. "Mommy says I'm too smart for my age," Lily commented, wiping chocolate sauce from the corner of her mouth. "But sometimes she gets sad when I ask questions." "What kind of questions?" James asked, trying to sound casual. Lily shrugged, suddenly more interested in cutting a piece of waffle into shapes. "Questions about my dad, about why we don't have a big house like the other kids, about why she cries at night when she thinks I'm sleeping." James felt a knot form in his throat. What had happened to Rebecca? Why had she disappeared? And why, in heaven's name, had she never told him about Lily? His thoughts were interrupted when a different doctor approached the table. "Mr. Carter," she called, "Dr. Thomas asked me to update you on Rebecca Morgan's condition." James straightened in his chair, feeling Lily grip his hand tightly. "Is Mommy okay?" the girl asked, her voice trembling. The doctor looked from James to Lily, choosing her words carefully. "Your mum is just out of surgery. She had some internal injuries and a concussion, but we managed to stabilize her. She'll need a few days in the ICU for observation." "Can I see her? Please, please," Lily begged, already sliding off her chair. "Not yet, sweetheart. She's sleeping and needs a lot of rest," the doctor said gently. "But as soon as she can have visitors, you'll be the first. Okay?" Lily seemed to accept this answer, though her lower lip trembled dangerously. "Are you a relative?" the doctor asked James quietly. James hesitated again. Under normal circumstances, he'd say no. But these were not normal circumstances. And there was a scared little girl counting on him. "Yes," he finally replied. "I'm Lily's father." The words left his mouth before he could think them through, but strangely, they didn't feel like a lie. They felt more like a possibility he was finally allowing himself to consider. The doctor nodded without question. "We'll need someone to fill out the insurance forms and authorize procedures. Could you come with me?" "Sure." James turned to Lily. "I just need to talk to the doctor for a minute, okay? I promise I'll be right back." The girl nodded, though her eyes revealed a fear of being alone. "Mr. Bear will watch over me," she said, trying to sound brave. Following the doctor down the hallway, James felt as though he was crossing a line of no return. The more involved he became, the harder it would be to step back. But the truth was, he didn't want to step back. He wanted answers. He wanted to understand why Rebecca had run away. And above all, he wanted to know if Lily was truly his daughter. One thing he knew for sure: his life had just changed forever, and all because of a desperate child's cry in a hospital corridor. The clock in the waiting room read nearly midnight when Dr. Thomas finally appeared. James jumped to his feet, careful not to wake Lily, who was curled up asleep on the chair beside him, hugging her inseparable Mr. Bear. "How is she?" he asked in a low voice. The doctor adjusted his glasses and consulted the chart in his hands. "It's a delicate situation, Mr. Carter. Rebecca suffered multiple internal injuries. Her spleen is compromised. There's a hemorrhage we haven't fully controlled, and the head concussion is concerning." James felt his blood turn cold. "Will she survive?" "We're doing everything we can, but she needs another surgery. A much more complex one." The doctor paused, choosing his words carefully. "I don't want to alarm you, but I need to be honest. The next 48 hours are critical." "Do whatever it takes, doctor," James responded immediately. "Any procedure, any specialist, no matter the cost." Dr. Thomas nodded, but there was an additional concern in his gaze. "There's another problem, Mr. Carter. The patient doesn't have adequate health insurance to cover all these procedures. The hospital will do what it can, but—" "I'll cover all the costs," James interrupted without a second of hesitation. "Any treatment she needs. And I want the best this hospital can provide." The doctor studied James's face for a moment, as if assessing his sincerity. "All right. In that case, I'll schedule the surgery for tomorrow morning. I'd like to bring in Dr. Patel from neurology and Dr. Reeves from vascular surgery. They're the best we have. Do it. And if there are better specialists in other hospitals, don't hesitate to call them." James took out a card and handed it to the doctor. "My personal number. Call me for anything at any time." When the doctor walked away, James returned to sit beside Lily. He looked at her sleeping face, her cheeks still marked by dried tears, her long, dark lashes resting against pale skin. How had he not noticed before? The resemblance was too obvious. She had to be his daughter. The question that kept pounding in his mind was why Rebecca had never told him. What could have happened that made her vanish completely from his life, taking with her the greatest gift she could have given him? His thoughts were interrupted when Lily stirred, slowly opening her eyes. "Did Mommy wake up?" she asked groggily. James gently stroked her hair. "Not yet, sweetheart. The doctors are taking care of her. How about we go back to the hotel and get some rest? We'll come back early tomorrow." Lily shook her head emphatically, now fully awake. "I don't want to leave. What if Mommy wakes up and can't find me?" "She won't wake up tonight, sweetie. The doctors gave her medicine so she can sleep a lot and heal. You promise we'll come back soon?" The green eyes gazed at him with a mixture of distrust and hope. "I promise. And you know what?" James leaned forward, speaking in a conspiratorial tone. "I think we can stop by a toy store tomorrow. Mr. Bear seems like he might need a friend." A small smile appeared on Lily's face, the first James had seen since meeting her. The hotel suite was spacious and luxurious, but to Lily, it looked like an alien planet. She walked around the room, cautiously touching things as if she feared they might disappear at her touch. "This place is bigger than our whole apartment," she remarked, wide-eyed as she explored the bathroom, "and there's a huge bathtub." James felt a twinge of sadness. Her excitement over things he took for granted spoke volumes about the life she had with Rebecca. "Do you want to take a bath?" he offered. You must be tired after such a long time at the hospital." The girl hesitated, clutching Mr. Bear more tightly. "I don't have any clothes here." "Oh, I took care of that." James picked up a shopping bag he had gotten from the hotel lobby. "I asked the concierge to buy some basic things for you. I hope they fit." Lily curiously examined the new pajamas, colorful socks, and a unicorn print toothbrush for kids. "You bought all this for me?" "Of course. We can't sleep in dirty clothes, can we?" While preparing Lily's bath, James realized he had no idea how to take care of a child. Was the water too hot, too cold? Should he leave her alone? Or would that be dangerous for a 4-year-old? "Do you need help?" he asked hesitantly, standing by the door. Lily raised her eyebrows as if the question were ridiculous. "I've been bathing myself since I was 3, she said proudly. "Mommy only helps me wash my hair sometimes." "Right. I'll be nearby if you need anything." While Lily bathed, James made several phone calls. First, to his assistant, cancelling all his appointments for the week. Then to his lawyer, asking him to discreetly look into Rebecca's and Lily's legal situation. Wasn't there a birth certificate with his name on it? When Lily emerged from the bathroom in her new pajamas, her hair still damp, she looked like a different child. Her cheeks were pink, her eyes brighter, and she seemed more relaxed. "I'm hungry," she announced, climbing onto the king-size bed as if it were a mountain to conquer. James checked the clock. It was past 1 a.m. "Let's order room service. What do you like to eat?" "Mac and cheese," she answered immediately, "and ice cream for dessert." James smiled, picking up the phone. "Mac and cheese and ice cream it is." While they waited for the food, Lily drew in a hotel notepad. James watched, amazed by her skill at such a young age. She drew a woman with red hair, a brown teddy bear, presumably Mr. Bear, and a figure that looked like herself. "You draw very well," he praised sincerely. Lily shrugged, focused on her artwork. "Mommy says I have talent. She gives me colored pencils for Christmas and on my birthday." James made a mental note to buy her a professional art set as soon as possible. "What else do you like to do, besides drawing?" Lily paused, thinking, "I like it when Mommy reads me stories, and I like going to the park near our place. Sometimes we play hide and seek there, when Mummy's not too tired from work." "Where does your mum work?" "She works in 2 places, Lily answered, now sketching what looked like a building. By day she's at a store that sells expensive clothes. At night she works at a restaurant serving food. On weekends, Mrs. Daniels stays with me." The image of Rebecca working 2 jobs to support her daughter made James feel a mix of guilt and anger. Guilt for not being there to help. Anger because she had never given him the chance to be a father. Room service arrived, interrupting his dark thoughts. Lily devoured her mac and cheese, soon smearing cheese on her cheeks. "This is the best mac and cheese in the world," she declared between bites. "Can we bring some to Mommy when she wakes up?" Of course, we can bring her anything she wants to eat. After their improvised dinner, James noticed Lily starting to yawn. "Time to sleep, little one." She didn't protest, exhaustion finally overcoming the day's excitement. When James tucked her in, Lily looked at him with a seriousness that seemed out of place on such a young face. "Are you really going to stay with me until Mommy wakes up?" "Yes, Lily. I'm not going anywhere. Promise?" "I promise," he answered, feeling the weight of that word. It was a promise he intended to keep, not just now, but for the rest of his life. Lily smiled, snuggling up with Mr. Bear. "Good night, James." "Good night, Lily." Minutes later, she was fast asleep. James watched her for a long time, both amazed and terrified by the sudden responsibility that had landed on his shoulders. He had a daughter he'd had no idea existed until a few hours ago. A daughter he could have raised, loved, protected all these years, if Rebecca hadn't left. And then there was Rebecca, the woman he loved like no other. The woman who had abandoned him without explanation, taking with her the greatest gift she could have given him. Why? The question consumed him like fire. Morning brought new challenges. Lily woke up crying, momentarily confused about where she was. James calmed her as best he could, gently reminding her of the events of the day before. "Are we going to see Mommy now?" she asked as soon as she finished breakfast. "Yes, but first we need to buy a few things for you," James replied, checking his watch. "Your mom's surgery is scheduled for 10:00. We have time." The shopping mall near the hotel was almost empty when they arrived. James took Lily straight to a children's clothing store and bought more than she would probably ever need. Dresses, pants, t-shirts, shoes, and even a winter coat, though it was still early fall. "I don't need all this," Lily protested when they reached their third shopping bag. "You never know," James answered with a smile. "Besides, every girl deserves nice clothes." Next, they went to a toy store where James told Lily she could pick whatever she wanted. Her eyes went wide at the possibility. Anything at all. Anything. To his surprise, Lily didn't run straight to the most expensive dolls or plushies. After carefully browsing the aisles, she chose a set of professional colored pencils, a storybook, and finally, a small plush rabbit. To keep Mr. Bear company, she explained, hugging her new friend. Back at the hospital, they found Rebecca being prepared for another surgery. James left Lily with a nurse for a few minutes while he spoke with the doctors. The procedure would be long and complex, with significant risks. "Mr. Carter," Dr. Patel called before entering the operating room, "we found something on Rebecca's scan that concerns us. There's a mass in her brain that might not be related to the accident. We need to investigate during the procedure." James felt his stomach drop. "I think it could be. We can't say yet. We'll do a biopsy during surgery and send it for analysis." Another complication, another reason to worry. James nodded, trying to keep himself composed. "Do whatever you have to, doctor. Just save her." When he returned to the waiting room, Lily was waiting with a new drawing. 3 people holding hands. "Who are they?" he asked, sitting beside her. "It's us," she answered simply. "Me, Mommy, and you. When she gets better." Her response caught him off guard. In less than 24 hours, Lily was already including him in her little family. "It's a beautiful drawing, Lily," was all he could say, emotion constricting his voice. The next hours were the longest of James's life. To distract Lily, he told stories, taught her to play tic-tac-toe on a napkin, and even tried drawing himself, though his scribbles were awful compared to hers. "You don't know how to draw," she observed, laughing. "Not everyone has your talent," James replied, pretending to be offended, which made her laugh even more. That sound, Lily's bright laughter, was like music. James realized he'd do anything to hear that laughter every day for the rest of his life. When hunger struck, they went down to the cafeteria. James watched with amusement as Lily ate a sandwich nearly the size of her face. "Mommy says I eat like a lion," she said between bites, "but I only grew a tiny bit this year." That's because you use lots of energy drawing masterpieces, James replied, wiping a bit of mayonnaise from her mouth. It was an automatic gesture, one of those little acts of care parents do for their children without thinking, but for James it was a moment of clarity. He was acting like a father. And, surprisingly, it didn't feel strange or forced. It felt right. Back in the waiting room, Lily finally dozed off in James's lap. He sat very still, afraid to wake her, taking in every detail of her face, the freckles on her nose, her dark eyebrows, her long lashes. A bit of him, a bit of Rebecca, merged into a completely unique person. His phone vibrated in his pocket. It was his assistant, reminding him of an important meeting with Korean investors the following day. "Cancel," James replied by text. "I'll be unavailable for an indefinite period. Family matter." Family. The word had new weight now, new meaning he had never experienced before. When Dr. Thomas finally appeared in the corridor, it was past 7 p.m. His face showed the fatigue of many hours of intense surgery, but there was a slight smile on his lips. "She pulled through, Mr. Carter," he announced. "The surgery was successful. We removed the damaged spleen, controlled the hemorrhage, and her intracranial pressure is stable." James felt tears burn his eyes. "And what about the other issue?" The doctor nodded, understanding the reference. "Dr. Patel managed to remove enough tissue for analysis. We'll have the results in a few days, but she's cautiously optimistic. The mass has benign characteristics." The relief James felt was so intense that for a moment he thought he might pass out. "When will she wake up?" "We've kept Rebecca in a medically induced coma for now. Her brain needs time to recover from the trauma. We'll probably start reducing sedation in 48 hours if all goes well." "And can we see her?" The doctor hesitated. "She's in the ICU. Visiting hours are restricted, but..." He looked at Lily, asleep in James's arms. "I can make a quick exception for the girl. It might be good for her to see her mum, even unconscious." Lily woke when James gently roused her. Her eyes snapped open at the mention of being allowed to see her mom. "Is she okay now?" she asked hopefully. "Not fully yet, darling," James explained gently. "She's still sleeping because of the medicine, but the doctors took care of all her injuries, and she'll wake up soon." In the ICU, Rebecca was hooked up to various machines. Her face, pale and swollen, showed bruises and cuts. Her head was partially bandaged, with tubes leading from her mouth and nose. Lily squeezed James's hand tightly. "Why does Mommy look like that?" she whispered, frightened. "These machines help her breathe and get better," James explained, kneeling beside her. "It looks scary, but everything's okay. It's like, you know when you're really tired and need to sleep a lot. That's Mommy right now, resting to get her strength back." Lily approached the bed hesitantly and carefully touched Rebecca's hand. "Hi, Mommy," she said softly. "It's Lily. I brought Mr. Bear to take care of you, and James is taking care of us." The simplicity and purity of those words made James turn his face away to hide the tears finally escaping. While Lily continued her whispered monologue to her unconscious mother, James watched Rebecca. Even in her current state, she was still beautiful. 5 years had passed, but his feelings seemed untouched, as if merely dormant, waiting to awaken when she did. What would he say when she opened her eyes? How would he explain that he'd discovered Lily? And how would she react when he inevitably asked, "Why did you leave me?" The shadows of the past loomed over them, untold secrets, unanswered questions. But one thing James knew for sure: no matter what Rebecca had done or why she had run, he wouldn't allow anything to separate them again. Neither from her nor from Lily. The days at the hospital turned into a routine. James split his time between Rebecca's room, still unconscious in the ICU, and the small world he created with Lily. The company could wait. The outside world could wait. Nothing seemed more important than those white walls, the constant beep of monitors, and the green eyes that met him every morning with a trust he never imagined he deserved. "Time to wake up, sleepyhead," James whispered, opening the curtains in the hotel room. Lily mumbled something unintelligible and pulled the covers over her head in a gesture so much like Rebecca that James couldn't help but smile. Some habits were apparently hereditary. "We're going to see Mommy today," came the muffled voice from under the comforter. "Of course we are." Like every day. The routine was simple but comforting. Breakfast at the hotel. Lily insisted on round pancakes, not square ones, almost every morning. Then a stop at the hospital cafeteria for hot chocolate, another ritual James dared not break. If he didn't bring the chocolate, Lily would cross her arms and frown exactly like he did when annoyed. At the hospital, they spent the morning by Rebecca's side. Lily told her unconscious mother all about what she'd done the day before, showing her drawings and describing the new book James had read to her, all with a heartbreaking naturalness. James knew it was important for the girl. Speaking to her mother, even if she couldn't respond, kept the connection alive. Meanwhile, James talked to doctors, consulted specialists, reviewed test results. The biopsy was a relief. The tumor was benign, a small meningioma that didn't require immediate intervention. It was manageable, treatable, a problem for the future, not a sentence. After lunch, while Rebecca needed care and bathing, James took Lily out. They had explored every corner of Central Park, visited the zoo 3 times, I want to see the penguins again, and even attended a children's show on Broadway. At night, after dinner, came James's favorite moment, story time. He had never been particularly creative, but discovered he could invent entire worlds to entertain Lily. Princess Lily and her loyal squire, Mr. Bear, crossed the enchanted bridge, he narrated, while Lily watched with bright eyes, snuggled under the blankets. On the other side, she couldn't believe what she saw. A garden full of talking flowers that shared secrets. "What kind of secrets?" Lily asked, clutching her teddy bear. "Magical secrets about how the stars light up at night and why the moon changes shape. About how love can travel through time and space without ever getting lost." Lily nodded, as though it all made perfect sense. Perhaps, to a 4-year-old, it did. Little moments like these built a bridge between them, piece by piece, day by day. James couldn't pinpoint exactly when it happened, but at some point, he realized Lily had stopped asking when Mrs. Daniels would come to pick her up, or when they'd return to her real home. This luxurious hotel, which had initially seemed so strange to her, was now simply our room. One night, during a particularly strong storm, James woke to the sound of timid footsteps nearing his bed. "James," the small voice called in the darkness, "can I sleep here? The noise is scaring Mr. Bear." He smiled into the darkness, shifting to make room for her. "Of course. Come on up." Lily snuggled in beside him, bringing her teddy bear and the scent of children's shampoo. Within seconds, her breathing slowed, and she fell asleep, with her head resting on his arm. James stayed awake, watching the little figure, feeling a mix of fear and gratitude. It was frightening how easily a child gave her trust, how she never questioned his motives or intentions. Lily simply believed he'd be there, that he'd protect her, that he wouldn't abandon her. And James silently promised that stormy night he would never break that trust. In the 3rd week, Dr. Thomas asked James for a word. "We're gradually reducing the sedation. Rebecca should start showing signs of consciousness in the next few days. Will she be all right? No lasting effects?" The doctor adjusted his glasses thoughtfully. "The brain is unpredictable, Mr. Carter. The trauma was significant, but recent scans look promising. Still, prepare for a slow recovery process." James nodded, feeling both relief and apprehension. What would happen when Rebecca woke up? How would she react to seeing him there, discovering he was caring for Lily, who likely was his child? For Lily, the news that her mom would wake soon was like an early Christmas. She was buzzing with excitement, chattering endlessly, making plans. "I'm going to make a giant drawing for her, and we'll show her all the cool places we visited, and she'll meet Ms. Whiskers." Ms. Whiskers was the new plush rabbit they'd bought the day before. Lily's family of stuffed animals kept growing. On every outing, James couldn't resist buying another one. A part of him knew he might be overcompensating, maybe even buying the girl's affection, but he didn't care enough to stop. The next day, while Lily was immersed in her new passion, puzzles, James got a call from his lawyer. "Mr. Carter, I completed the inquiries you requested. Lily Morgan's birth certificate lists the father as unknown. There's no legal record linking you to the child. James felt a weight in his stomach. Part of him had hoped Rebecca had at least recorded the truth, even if she had never told him. I see. And what about her financial situation? It's worrisome, to say the least. She's 2 months behind on rent for the apartment in Queens. The car destroyed in the accident was financed, with 3 overdue payments. There are several personal loans in her name, small amounts, but together they make a considerable debt. Take care of all of it, James ordered. Pay off her debts, cover the rent a year in advance, and see if you can retrieve any personal items of hers and Lily's from the apartment. Clothes, documents, anything sentimental. Do you plan to file for paternity? James hesitated. That was the question he'd been avoiding. Not yet. I need to speak with Rebecca first. But prepare whatever documents might be needed, just in case. When he hung up, he noticed Lily watching him curiously. Was that someone talking about Mommy? She asked. Sort of, James replied, putting away the phone. How's that puzzle going? Lily shrugged, returning her attention to the scattered pieces. It's hard, but I'll get it. Mommy always says I'm as stubborn as she is. James knelt on the carpet to help her fit the pieces. That stubbornness was a familiar trait. Rebecca had always been like that too, relentless, until she got what she wanted, which made her disappearance all the more inexplicable. Tuned on the morning of Rebecca's 23rd day in the hospital, James was sitting beside her bed, while Lily drew quietly at a small table. He held Rebecca's hand, a gesture that had become part of their routine, when he felt a faint movement, a spasm, nothing more. It had happened before, normal muscle reflexes, the doctors had explained. But then came another movement, more defined, and another. The heart monitor started to show changes in her rhythm, faster, stronger. James leaned forward, hardly daring to breathe. Lily, he called softly, go get the nurse, quick. The girl dropped her pencils immediately and ran to the corridor. James gently squeezed Rebecca's hand. Rebecca, can you hear me? A slight furrow of her brow, her eyelids fluttered. I'm here, you're safe. Lily's fine. At the mention of her daughter's name, Rebecca seemed to react more strongly. Her fingers gripped his with surprising force for someone who had been in a coma so long, and then, slowly, her eyes began to open. Confused, unfocused, those blue eyes he knew so well wandered over the ceiling for a moment before finding his face. There was a moment of pure incomprehension, followed by a flash of recognition that made the heart monitor spike. James. Her voice came out rough, barely audible, a shadow of the melodic tone he remembered. What's going on? He felt a knot in his throat, emotion almost making him speechless. You had an accident, Rebecca. You've been in the hospital for over 3 weeks. She blinked slowly, absorbing the information. Lily? She asked, panic rising in her eyes. Where is my Lily? She's okay. She's here at the hospital. She just went to call the nurse. Don't worry. She wasn't seriously hurt in the accident. The relief on Rebecca's face was so profound it brought tears to James's eyes. Even confused and in pain, her first thought was for her daughter. For their daughter. The nurse entered, followed by Dr. Thomas and Lily, who looked ready to burst with excitement. Mommy! She cried, rushing to the bed. Careful, sweetheart. The nurse held her gently. Your mom is still weak. Let's run some tests first, okay? Lily nodded, though clearly impatient. James stepped away to give the doctors space, taking Lily with him into the corridor. Mommy woke up, the girl repeated, jumping for joy. Is she coming home now? James knelt down to meet her eyes. Not yet, little one. She still needs to stay in the hospital until she's fully better. But this is a really good sign, right? Lily nodded and threw her arms around his neck in a tight hug. Thank you for staying with us, James. You're the best mommy friend I've ever met. The innocent compliment made him smile, though he felt a pang at the thought that soon he'd have to explain to Lily that he was more than just mommy's friend. After nearly an hour of tests, Dr. Thomas finally let them return to the room. Rebecca is conscious and oriented, which is excellent, the doctor explained. However, she's still very weak and confused. There might be some memory gaps around the accident, which is normal, Go slowly. Don't overwhelm her with too much information. When they entered, they found Rebecca with the bed slightly raised. Color was starting to return to her cheeks, and her eyes, though tired, were more focused now. "Mommy!" Lily ran to her, stopping at the bedside, unsure how to touch her without causing pain. Rebecca raised a trembling hand, stroking her daughter's face. "My love." Her voice was still hoarse but stronger. "Are you really okay? You weren't hurt?" "Just a tiny scratch." Lily showed her arm, where the small bandage from the day of the accident was long gone. "I was so brave, wasn't I, James?" Rebecca looked at James, and something in her gaze changed. There was confusion, apprehension, perhaps even fear. "James has been taking care of me," Lily continued, oblivious to the tension. "We're staying in a huge hotel with a bathtub and everything. He bought me a bunch of new clothes, and art pencils and Ms. whiskers. And we went to the zoo 3 times. Rebecca listened, her expression a mixture of gratitude and growing alarm. "Lily, honey," James gently cut in, "why don't you show Mommy that special drawing you made yesterday?" The girl nodded eagerly, running to her backpack to get her sketchbook. When she moved away, Rebecca turned to James. "How long?" she asked. 23 days, he answered, guessing what she wanted to know. "I've been taking care of Lily since the accident." Rebecca closed her eyes briefly, as though trying to process it all. "Why?" she finally asked. A simple question. 3 letters carrying the weight of 5 years' absence. "Because she needed someone," James replied carefully. "And because she's my daughter, isn't she?" Rebecca's eyes opened wide, filled with a fear he'd never seen before. "James, Look, Mommy." Lily came running back with a colorful drawing in her hands. "It's our family. Me, you, James, Mr. Bear and Ms. Whiskers." The drawing showed 5 figures holding hands. A red-haired woman, a small girl, a tall man, and 2 vaguely bear-like animals, all smiling under a big yellow sun. Rebecca took the drawing with trembling hands, studying it at length. "It's beautiful, sweetheart," she finally said, her voice raw. "You drew it so well." "James bought me professional colored pencils," Lily explained proudly. "They're the same ones real artists use." Rebecca gave James a quick glance, gratitude mingled with something more complex that he couldn't decipher. "That's very kind of him," she said, adjusting herself in bed with a grimace of pain. "Are you all right?" James asked, automatically stepping closer. "Just tired," Rebecca replied, though it was obvious there was more. "And confused." Lily climbed onto the chair next to the bed. "Want me to tell you everything we did while you were asleep, Mommy? James said you'd want to know everything." Rebecca smiled faintly. "Sure, honey. Tell me everything." As Lily chattered away about her adventures over the last weeks, James watched Rebecca. She listened genuinely, smiling at the right moments, asking little questions, but her eyes occasionally flicked to him, cautious, worried. There were so many unanswered questions between them, so many explanations needed. A nurse eventually returned. "Time for your meds, Ms. Morgan. The patient needs to rest now," Lily pouted. "But I haven't told her about the penguins." "You can tell her tomorrow," James promised. "She needs her sleep to get strong again." "You're going to get better soon, right, Mommy?" Lily suddenly asked, serious. "So we can go home, our new home." Rebecca shot James a questioning look. "Lily, sweetheart," James suggested gently, "why don't you wait outside with the nurse for a minute? I need to tell your mom something quickly." Reluctant but obedient, Lily followed the nurse into the hallway. Once alone, an uneasy silence settled. "You told her?" Rebecca finally asked. "About—" "No," James answered. "I figured it should come from you. Or from both of us, together." Rebecca nodded, dropping her gaze to her hands. "Thank you for taking care of her. I don't know how I'll ever repay—" "I don't want repayment, Rebecca," James interrupted, more sharply than intended. He took a deep breath to steady himself. "I want an explanation. I want to understand why you disappeared. Why you never told me about Lily." Rebecca seemed to shrink against the pillows. "It's complicated." "We have time," he responded. "Now we have all the time in the world." She closed her eyes, a lone tear sliding down her cheek. "Not today, James. Please, I can barely keep my thoughts together. Everything feels distant, confusing." He wanted to push, needed answers to the questions that had haunted him for weeks. But Rebecca's fragility was obvious. Pushing her now would be cruel. "All right," he finally agreed. "But we need to talk, Rebecca, about the past and about the future." "I know," she whispered. "I know." James stood, hesitating before gently touching her hand. "Rest, we'll be back tomorrow." When he was almost at the door, her voice stopped him. "James," he turned. "Yes?" "Lily, she really likes you." It wasn't a question, nor exactly an accusation. It was a statement loaded with unspoken meanings. "And I've grown very fond of her," he answered simply. "More than I ever imagined possible." Rebecca nodded, a sad smile ghosting her lips. "She looks like you, not just physically." It was the first time she had indirectly acknowledged what they both knew. James's heart quickened. "We'll come back tomorrow," he repeated, unsure what else to say. In the hallway, he found Lily playing with Mrs. Whiskers, making up a conversation between the rabbit and Mr. Bear. She smiled brightly when she saw him. "Mommy's going to sleep now." "Yes, she needs rest so she can get strong." "Like when you read stories to me before bed." James smiled, picking her up. "Exactly. Stories help you dream beautiful things." Lily rested her head on his shoulder, suddenly thoughtful. "James." "Yes?" "Now that Mommy woke up, will you still stay with us?" The question hit him like a punch. Of course that concern would arise. To Lily, he was just a friend of her mum who'd shown up out of nowhere. There was no guarantee he would stay. "Lily," he said seriously, setting her down to meet her eyes. "I promise that no matter what happens, I'll always be in your life, always." The girl studied his face for a long moment, with surprising intensity for someone so young. "Pinky promise?" she finally asked, extending her little finger. "Pinky promise," he replied, hooking his pinky around hers. As they walked out of the hospital, James thought about how his life had turned upside down in less than a month. The business meetings, work dinners, international trips, they all felt like someone else's life, a version of him that no longer existed. His world now revolved around bedtime stories, colorful drawings, walks in the park, and a small hand in his. And surprisingly, he didn't miss his old life, not when he had Lily skipping beside him, excitedly planning her next drawing for her mum. Rebecca's awakening marked the start of a new phase, one that would bring answers, but also new challenges. James didn't know how the coming weeks would unfold, how they would rebuild what had been broken 5 years ago. But looking at Lily, with her green eyes so much like his and her smile so much like Rebecca's, he was certain of one thing. He would do whatever it took to keep his promise, anything to be the father she deserved, even if it meant facing the shadows of the past that Rebecca wasn't yet ready to reveal. In the days that followed Rebecca's awakening, hospital life took on a different rhythm. The visits were no longer silent, with James and Lily speaking to someone unresponsive. Now there were real conversations, though cautious, as if everyone were treading on thin ice. Rebecca gained strength every day. The doctors were impressed by her recovery, crediting part of it to Lily's constant presence and the emotional stability the girl displayed, thanks to James's care. "Are you ready for physical therapy?" asked Nurse Kim one sunny morning, entering the room. Rebecca nodded with determination. Each session brought her closer to normalcy, to regaining control of her life. During these sessions, when James and Lily weren't around, she finally had time to think clearly about everything that had happened. Her memories returned in fragments. The accident was still a blur, but life before it became clearer, including her reasons for disappearing 5 years ago. "You look very thoughtful today," Kim remarked, helping her into a wheelchair. "I have a lot on my mind," Rebecca replied with a tired smile. During physical therapy, while she struggled to take steps that once were automatic, Rebecca couldn't stop thinking about James, how he had appeared out of nowhere, taking on a role never offered to him, and how Lily adored him. That scared her more than she wanted to admit. It was one thing to walk away from him in the past, when it only affected her, Another thing entirely to make any decisions now, when Lily had formed such a bond with him. "Excellent job, Rebecca," the physical therapist encouraged, as she managed 5 consecutive steps without support. "You're progressing quickly. If only her inner conflicts could be resolved as quickly." Kirsten Mahanamati. When she returned to her room, she found James there alone. Lily was in the hospital's playroom with other kids under a volunteer's supervision. "How was the session?" he asked, helping her back into bed. "Tiring but productive," she replied, avoiding his eyes. "The doctors think I might be discharged next week." James nodded, sitting in the chair by the bed. An uncomfortable silence stretched out between them. So much remained unsaid, so many questions unanswered. Each passing day only increased the tension, like a balloon about to burst. "Rebecca," James finally broke the silence. "We need to talk." She closed her eyes for a moment, gathering strength. "I know. Not just about Lily, but about us. About what happened 5 years ago." Rebecca felt her heart race. It was inevitable, she knew, but she still didn't feel ready. "You just disappeared," he continued, hurt evident in his voice. "One day we were planning a life together, and the next you were gone. No explanations, no note, nothing." Rebecca nervously fiddled with the edge of the sheet. "I know I owe you an explanation." "Yes, you do." James couldn't hide the hardness in his voice. "Not just to me, but also to Lily. Do you have any idea what I felt when I saw you in this hospital? When I realized I had a 4-year-old daughter I'd never met." Guilt struck Rebecca like a blow. The tears she'd held back for days finally spilled over. "You think it was easy for me?" Her voice rose more than she intended. "You think I decided to shut you out of her life on a whim?" "I don't know what to think, Rebecca. That's why I'm asking." James raised his voice as well, releasing pent-up frustration. "What reason could be strong enough for you to hide my own daughter from me for 4 years? Rebecca wiped her tears with the back of her hand, struggling to regain composure. "Your father," she finally said, the words heavy as lead. "It was because of your father." James frowned, confused. "My father? What does he have to do with this?" Rebecca took a deep breath, summoning courage to reveal the truth she'd kept for so long. "He never approved of our relationship, James. You knew that. What you didn't know is that he came to see me the day before I disappeared." James paled. "What? How?" "He found me outside the college, said he wanted to talk. At first I thought maybe he finally wanted to get to know me, accept our relationship." She gave a bitter laugh. "How naive I was." James leaned forward, eyes locked on her. "What did he do?" "He offered me money," Rebecca said, her voice trembling but determined, meeting James's gaze directly. "A lot of money, to vanish from your life. He said I was getting in the way of your future, that you needed to focus on the family business, not some dead-end romance with a girl lacking social status." James's face twisted in shock and outrage. "He did that," he whispered, incredulous. "Why didn't you tell me?" "You think I didn't want to?" she shot back. "I ran to the phone as soon as I left that cafe, but then he said something that stopped me." "What?" Rebecca hesitated. Even now, it was painful to recall. "He said you already knew, that you two had talked about me, about how I was holding you back, that you agreed to end things but didn't have the courage to do it yourself. He was just helping you." James stood abruptly, raking his hands through his hair in despair. "That's a lie, an absurd lie. I would never, ever have said anything like that." "I know that now," Rebecca said softly, "but at the time, it seemed to make sense. You'd been distant, always busy with your father's projects, cancelling our dates." "Because he was overloading me on purpose?" James exclaimed, realization dawning on his face. "Oh God, Rebecca, he set this all up." Rebecca nodded sadly. "Did you take the money?" he asked, though he already knew the answer. She shook her head, eyes flashing with indignation. "Never. I told him off, said horrible things." A small smile curved her lips. "I think no one had ever spoken to the great Richard Carter like that before." James couldn't help a brief smile despite the situation. "I can imagine. But then I realized," she went on, her smile fading, "he would never leave us alone. He'd always find ways to interfere, to push me away, and I couldn't bear it if you started to doubt me, to believe what he was saying. So you decided to leave, James finished, voice filled with sadness. Yes, that very night, I took what little I had and left for Chicago, where my aunt lived. Rebecca sighed deeply. Then 2 months later, I found out I was pregnant. James sank back down, the weight of her revelation pressing on him. Why didn't you contact me then? Lily is my daughter, Rebecca. I thought about coming back, she admitted. Many times. I even picked up the phone to call you. But then I saw news about you, about how your family's company was thriving under your leadership. I saw pictures of you at events with other women, all the right type. She made air quotes. And I wondered, what if your father was right? What if you really didn't want me in your life anymore? That was never true, James protested, pain evident in his voice. I looked for you for months. I hired private detectives, who somehow never found me, Rebecca observed, even though I never changed my last name or truly hid. James felt a chill run down his spine. You think my father intercepted your attempts to find me, she finished. It wouldn't be surprising considering everything else he did. James stood again, unable to contain his nervous energy. He paced the room, trying to absorb it all. How much did we lose because of one lie? He murmured, almost to himself. How happy could we have been if I'd known the truth? Rebecca watched him in silence, tears streaming down her face. When Lily was born, she went on after a moment, I thought of contacting you again. She looked so much like you. Same eyes, same stubborn chin. James turned to her, his gaze softening. Why didn't you? Fear, Rebecca admitted, a simple word carrying years of doubt. Afraid your father might do something worse. Afraid you had moved on and didn't want complications. Afraid you wouldn't believe she was yours. And as time passed, it just got harder to imagine explaining my disappearance. James moved closer to the bed, sitting on the edge. He gently took Rebecca's hand in his. I can't change the past, he said, meeting her eyes. I can't erase the years we lost or the tears you cried while raising our daughter alone. But I can make sure my father never interferes in our lives again. I want to be part of Lily's life, Rebecca. I want to be with you both. Rebecca studied him in silence, weighing his words. Part of her wanted to believe, wanted to trust, but there were still too many scars, too many fears. How do I know this isn't temporary? She asked, voicing her insecurities. That you won't get tired when the novelty wears off. James squeezed her hand gently. Because I never stopped loving you, Rebecca, not for one single day. The words hung between them, charged with emotion. Rebecca's heart raced, wanting to believe, but fear kept her guarded. The silence was broken by Lily's loud entrance, carrying a new drawing. Mommy! Look what I made, she exclaimed, rushing to the bed, unaware of the tension in the room. Rebecca quickly wiped her tears, forcing a smile for her daughter. It's beautiful, honey. What is it? Our new apartment, Lily explained, pointing at the colorful scribbles. James said that when you leave the hospital, we'll live somewhere new and pretty. Rebecca shot a questioning look at James, who seemed slightly embarrassed. I just mentioned that your old apartment was... He hesitated for a suitable word. Unavailable at the moment. Unavailable, Rebecca echoed. Yes, well, your lease was cancelled due to late payments, he cautiously explained. But don't worry, I managed to retrieve all your personal belongings. They're in storage. Rebecca felt a wave of shame. Her precarious life laid bare. Another reminder of her vulnerability, her need for help and James's resources that she could never match. Thank you, she said tersely, struggling to maintain composure in front of Lily. James sensed her discomfort. Lily, honey, could you go get some juice for your mum at the cafeteria? Here's the money. The girl nodded happily, taking the bill and leaving the room proud of her errand. Once alone again, the silence felt heavy. You want to be in her life now, Rebecca said, looking at James cautiously. But what if that changes? What if you decide you don't want it anymore? Or if your father interferes again? I'm not that 20-something kid anymore, Rebecca, he answered firmly. I don't rely on my father, financially or emotionally. I have my own company, built without a cent from him. And as for changing my mind, he shook his head. I've lost 5 years, Rebecca. I never want to lose another day. I want to be with you both. The conviction in his voice was undeniable, but Rebecca's fear wasn't rational. It was visceral, deep-rooted in years of lonely struggle. I need time, James, she finally said. I can't just come back to you as if nothing happened, as if these 5 years never existed. James nodded, understanding. I get it, and I'll give you all the time you need. But know this, I'm not giving up. Not this time. Lily returned then, carefully balancing a cup of juice. I got it without spilling, she announced proudly. Good girl, James smiled, taking the cup from her. It's getting late. I think we should let your mum rest now. Rebecca felt a pang in her chest at Lily's disappointed expression. But I want to stay longer, the girl protested. We'll come back early tomorrow, James promised, and maybe we can bring that chocolate cake you love. Lily's eyes lit up. The one with double frosting. That's the one. The ease with which James dealt with Lily, knowing her tastes, her little quirks, filled Rebecca with a twinge of jealousy, envy. She wasn't sure. It was odd seeing someone else know her daughter so well, having their own little rituals and secrets. Come give me a goodnight kiss, Rebecca asked, opening her arms to her daughter. Lily ran up and hugged her tight, inhaling the scent of her hair. Love you, Mommy, Lily whispered. I love you too, sweetheart, more than anything in the world. When they left, Rebecca allowed herself to cry again, tears of confusion, fear, but also, undeniably, hope. Because despite everything, part of her still loved James. She always had. And seeing him with Lily, so natural, so caring, it was hard to keep her defenses up. But Rebecca needed time. The fear was still real. And Lily already loved James without even realizing what that meant. Could she risk it all again? The following days were a cautious dance. James respected Rebecca's space, never bringing up their conversation again, never pushing her for a decision, but he did not back away either. He remained present, constant, reliable. He brought Lily every morning to see her mother, then took her to the school he had found for her to attend temporarily. He returned in the afternoon with the girl, always bringing something, a new drawing, a small gift, flowers to brighten the room. Rebecca watched it all with a mix of gratitude and reserve. In an ideal world, she'd be angry at James for taking so much control over their lives, but she didn't have the energy for that now. And, if she were honest, it was a relief not having to worry about practical details while recovering. A week passed, and the doctors confirmed Rebecca could be discharged in 2 days. Where am I going? She asked James when they were alone. You mentioned my apartment. I rented a place, he said, temporary until you decide what you want to do. It's a duplex near Central Park, with enough space for the two of you and close to Lily's new school. Rebecca raised her eyebrows. You already enrolled her in a school? James looked suddenly unsure. I thought it would be good for her to have stability. The principal is excellent, and the facilities are... He stopped, noticing her expression. That was presumptuous, wasn't it? I should have asked you first. Rebecca sighed. No, you're right. Lily needs a routine, stability, she admitted. It's just weird having someone else make these decisions for me, for us. I didn't mean to override you, James explained. I just wanted everything ready for when you got out of here. But you can change anything you don't like. The school, the apartment, anything. His effort to respect her autonomy was evident, and it meant more to Rebecca than he realized. Thank you, she said sincerely, for everything you're doing for Lily. For us, James smiled, that smile she knew so well, which still made her heart skip a beat. There's no need to thank me. You're my family. The word family lingered between them, weighted with significance. Rebecca looked away, unable to face the moment's intensity. I still need time, James. I know, he replied gently. And you'll have it. On the eve of her discharge, Rebecca received an unexpected visit. James arrived earlier than usual, without Lily. She stayed at school for a special event, he explained. I thought we could take this chance to talk. Rebecca nodded, adjusting the bed. She was almost fully recovered, able to walk short distances unassisted. I thought we agreed to take our time, she commented. And I'll respect that, James assured her. But there's something I need to show you first. He took an envelope from his jacket pocket and handed it to her. What's this? Open it. With hesitant fingers, she opened the envelope and pulled out an official document. Her eyes scanned it quickly, then widened in surprise. Is this? A formal request to establish paternity, James confirmed. I want Lily to have my last name officially, my rights, my protection, if you agree, of course. Rebecca felt her throat tighten with emotion. Why now? Because I want you to know I'm committed, no matter what happens between us, he explained. This isn't conditional, Rebecca. I'm not offering to be Lily's father only if we get back together. I want to be her father under any circumstance, because it's what she deserves and what I deserve. His sincerity was undeniable. Rebecca felt a barrier in her heart begin to crumble. And there's one more thing, James continued, taking out another paper from the envelope. This is my updated will. Lily is my primary heir, regardless of anything else. James, that's not necessary. Yes, it is, he interrupted gently. I want you to know I'm not joking around, Rebecca. This isn't a whim or a phase. It's a lifelong commitment. Rebecca looked again at the papers in her hands, feeling the weight of what they represented. Years of lonely struggle, of financial hardship, of uncertainty over Lily's future. And now this man had re-entered their lives, offering not just resources but genuine commitment. It was terrifying. It was liberating. It was everything she had secretly wished for during those lonely years. I need to think about this, she finally said. James nodded, not showing disappointment. Of course. No rush. I just wanted you to know where I stand. He got up, checking his watch. I have to pick Lily up now. I'll come by later to help you get ready for discharge. When he left, Rebecca stared at the documents for a long time. She had no more excuses, she realized. All the reasons she used to justify keeping James at a distance were losing ground in the face of his consistent actions. And the truth she wouldn't admit was that, despite everything, she had never stopped loving him. The move to the duplex near Central Park happened on a perfect fall day. The sky was clear, the trees flaunted shades of red and gold, and a gentle breeze blew through the city. Rebecca watched from the car window as James drove through Manhattan streets, Lily chattering non-stop in the back seat about the new bedroom she was about to see. And James said, I can pick the wall color. I think I want pink or blue, or purple with stars. Or all of them together, she exclaimed, hugging Ms. Whiskers and Mr. Bear at the same time. Rebecca smiled, catching a glimpse of James. He kept his eyes on the road, but there was a small smile on his lips. In the past few weeks since she'd left the hospital, she had noticed these subtle moments, how he reacted to Lily's words, how his expression softened when the girl hugged him, how his eyes lit up when he saw her asleep. It was the look of a father who loved his daughter unconditionally, even though he had just met her. We're here, James announced, parking in front of an elegant brick building. Rebecca felt a knot in her stomach. It was obviously a pricey address in one of the city's most exclusive neighborhoods, so different from the small Queen's apartment she and Lily used to call home. It didn't have to be somewhere, so she began, hesitant. There's a playground on the rooftop, James interrupted gently, and Lily's school is 2 blocks away, plus the hospital where your continuing physiotherapy is nearby. It was practical, not about the location. It was a polite white lie, and both of them knew it, but Rebecca appreciated the gesture. Over the past weeks, James had shown a surprising sensitivity to her feelings, never flaunting his wealth, always giving practical reasons for what he did for them. The doorman greeted them warmly, and Lily instantly charmed him by asking if he had kids to play with her. My granddaughter is about your age, the man replied, delighted. She visits me on Sundays. I can bring Mr. Bear and Miss Whiskers to meet her, Lily exclaimed, showing off her plushies. In the elevator, Rebecca felt James's hand discreetly seek hers, a brief, almost shy touch, as if asking permission. She did not pull away, but neither did she lace her fingers through his. This in-between state seemed an apt reflection of where they stood now, neither together nor apart, stuck in emotional limbo. "Ready?" he asked when the elevator stopped at the top floor. Rebecca took a deep breath and nodded. The apartment was stunning but not ostentatious, spacious without being excessive, tastefully decorated yet cozy. There were fresh flowers on the dining table, neatly arranged toys on colorful shelves, and huge windows letting in natural light. "I hired a decorator," James explained, looking almost nervous as Rebecca looked around. "But I gave her strict instructions to make it a home, not a showroom. If there's anything you want to change, it's perfect," Rebecca said, voice trembling with emotion. Lily had already dashed through the apartment, exclaiming with excitement at every corner. Her squeals echoed in the walls. "Mommy! Mommy! Come see my room! I have a princess bed!" Rebecca followed her daughter's voice to a room painted a soft yellow. In the center stood a canopy bed, just like the ones Lily used to point to in fancy store catalogs. Surrounding it were shelves of children's books, a small desk with art supplies, and a toy chest containing more items than Lily had ever owned. "James," Rebecca started, feeling both grateful and overwhelmed. "I know it seems too much," he said quietly, standing by her side. "But I couldn't help it. I wanted to make up for all the birthdays and Christmases I missed." There was so much sincerity in his voice that Rebecca couldn't scold him. Instead, she watched Lily explore every inch of the room, hugging new stuffed animals, flipping through colorful books, testing pencils on a sketch pad. "And here?" Rebecca asked, pointing to a door in the hallway. "Your room," James answered. "Well, your office, actually." Intrigued, Rebecca opened the door and found a cozy space with a desk, a new computer, bookshelves, and a comfortable sofa. "I don't understand." James scratched his neck in a nervous habit she remembered well. "I didn't want to presume. I mean, I don't know what our arrangement will be, so—" He took a breath. "There's a bedroom for you, of course. This is just an extra space. I thought you might want your own area, no matter what decisions we make." Rebecca felt a wave of gratitude. It was exactly the sort of consideration she needed, the acknowledgement of her autonomy, her need for space to breathe and think. "Thank you," she said simply, but her look conveyed far more. The door at the end of the hall led to a large bedroom with a king-size bed and large windows framing the view of the park. Rebecca walked slowly around the room, her fingers brushing over the dark wood furniture. "You can have this room," James offered quickly. "I can take the office as my bedroom. It's big enough for a bed." Rebecca turned to him, noting how hard he was trying not to pressure her, not to assume anything. "Let's see how things work out," she replied softly. "One day at a time, right?" James nodded, visibly relieved she wasn't rejecting the possibility of a shared future. Over the next few days, they settled into a routine. James still worked, but rearranged his schedule to be around most of the time. He took Lily to school in the morning, while Rebecca did physiotherapy 3 times a week. In the afternoon, he was usually home when Lily returned, filling the apartment with her drawings and stories of her day. James did most of the cooking, revealing a culinary skill that surprised Rebecca. "Where did you learn this?" she asked, watching him prepare a perfectly creamy risotto. "Cooking classes," he answered, focused on stirring the rice. "I got tired of eating alone in restaurants or ordering delivery. I thought it would be a useful skill." There was something deeply revealing in that admission. The James she had known years ago would never have bothered learning to cook. He would simply have hired someone. This new James wanted to create, nourish, and care with his own hands. "And you? Did you learn many new things over these years?" he asked, not looking up from the stove. Rebecca thought for a moment. "I learned to change a car's oil," she replied, "and fix basic plumbing leaks, how to stretch money when it seemed impossible, how to make Lily laugh even on the hardest days." "You're amazing," James said, finally looking at her. "You know that, right?" Rebecca shrugged, uncomfortable with the praise. "I did what needed to be done." "Exactly," he insisted. "You're the strongest person I know, Rebecca. You always have been." After dinner, Rebecca's favorite time began. James would bathe Lily and tuck her in, always telling a fantastical story he invented on the spot. Rebecca usually stood by the bedroom door, watching the easy rapport between them. The way they had built their own rituals in just a few weeks. Princess Lily and her loyal squire, Sir Bear, finally discovered the hidden treasure, James narrated, using different voices for each character while Lily listened in fascination. "What was in the treasure?" she asked, eyes already drooping with sleep. "Something more valuable than gold or diamonds," he said, gently stroking her hair. The treasure held memories, happy memories from the past and promises for the future. When the princess opened the gleaming chest, that was usually the moment when Rebecca slipped away, feeling like an intruder in the magic he created with Lily. These stories belonged to them, a bridge built in a short time, but already solid. One evening, however, James quietly called her over. "Want to finish the story tonight?" he asked, surprising her. Lily perked up immediately. "Yes, Mommy, tell us what was in the treasure." Rebecca entered the room hesitantly and sat on the edge of the bed. James smiled encouragingly and stood, offering his place to her. "Well," Rebecca began, improvising. When Princess Lily opened the gleaming chest, she found 3 shining stars. Each one stood for something special: courage to face the unknown, wisdom to make good choices, and love to warm her heart even on the coldest nights. Lily listened intently, her green eyes fixed on Rebecca. The princess took the 3 stars and placed them in the sky where they still shine, Rebecca went on. "And whenever someone feels lost or scared, they can look at those stars and remember they're not alone." "This story is about us, isn't it?" Lily asked, surprising Rebecca with her insight. "We're the 3 stars." A lump formed in Rebecca's throat. She just nodded, unable to speak. James, and standing by the door, blinked back tears. Some nights, after Lily was asleep, James and Rebecca would sit on the apartment's balcony with a glass of wine, looking at the city lights. They talked about light topics: Lily's school, Rebecca's physio progress, James's work projects, carefully avoiding deeper subjects and the decision looming over them. But Rebecca knew they couldn't keep this up forever. Eventually, they'd have to define what they were: friendly co-parents living separately, or a family reunited after years apart. One Saturday afternoon, about a month after the move, Rebecca found James in the kitchen, talking quietly on the phone. She was going to leave to give him privacy, but something about his expression made her pause. "No, Dad, it's not negotiable," he was saying, voice firm but controlled. "You've interfered enough in my life. I won't let you do it again." Rebecca froze. He was talking to Richard Carter, the man who had shattered her dreams 5 years ago. "Yes, we're living together. Yes, Lily is my daughter," James continued. "And no, I don't care what you or the press think about it." He paused, listening. "If you decide to go through with it, just know I'll be ready. I have documents, emails, plenty of evidence of your interference to make things very uncomfortable for you and the company. Don't test me." Rebecca quietly stepped back, her heart pounding. James was standing up to his father for them. He was risking his relationship with his family, maybe even his professional standing. That night, as she watched James tell Lily her bedtime story, Rebecca saw him differently. He wasn't the young man she'd known in college, talented but still seeking to prove himself under his father's shadow. This man had forged his own path, earned his own independence, and was now willing to fight for what he believed in, for them. Lily fell asleep, and James slipped out of her room. He found Rebecca in the hallway, in her usual spot. "Everything okay?" he asked, noting something different in her expression. "I heard your conversation today," she admitted. "With your father." James sighed, running his hand through his hair. "I didn't want you to know. He's being difficult." "Threatening you." "Trying," James said with a small smile, "but he doesn't have the power he once did. I built my own company. I have my own network. He can try to cause trouble, but he won't succeed. You shouldn't have to choose between your family and—" Rebecca hesitated. "You two," he finished. "Rebecca, there is no choice to make. You're my family now. My father will have to accept it, or we'll go our separate ways." The simplicity of his statement shook Rebecca deeply. No drama, no ultimatums, just a calm certainty. Rebecca stepped forward and, for the first time since her return, initiated a hug. James seemed briefly surprised, then wrapped his arms around her. "Thank you for defending her," Rebecca whispered. "For defending us." "Always," he promised against her hair. Always. That night, for the first time since moving in, Rebecca couldn't sleep. She tossed and turned, thinking about how James had been patient, giving her space while clearly wanting more. He never pushed, but never withdrew either. It was as if he were silently saying, "I'm here. I'll be here as long as it takes." The next morning, a bright Sunday, James suggested a picnic in Central Park. Lily was ecstatic and helped make the sandwiches, spreading butter all over the kitchen in the process. The park was crowded with families enjoying the pleasant weather. They found a quiet spot under a large tree, laid out a blanket and arranged their improvised lunch. As they ate, Lily pointed at every dog passing by, announcing she wanted one. James looked at Rebecca, raising an eyebrow in silent question. "Don't even think about it," she joked, laughing. "We already have the apartment full of stuffed animals." "A real pet is a different story." "But I'd take care of it," Lily protested. "I'd feed it and walk it and everything." "Maybe when you're a bit older," James compromised. "For now, how about another ice cream?" The mention of dessert immediately distracted Lily, and she ran off with James to the nearby ice cream cart. Rebecca watched them from a distance, the small hand in his, him leaning down to listen as she explained with utter seriousness why chocolate was objectively the best flavor. Something warm and comforting spread through Rebecca's chest. It was more than gratitude or relief at seeing her daughter happy. It was the realization that, despite all her doubts and fears, she was allowing herself to love again, loving James, loving the idea of a complete family, loving the future they might build. When they returned with the ice cream, Rebecca noticed a smudge of chocolate at the corner of James's mouth, identical to Lily's. Without thinking, she reached out and wiped it with her thumb. A simple, automatic, intimate gesture, the kind couples do without a second thought. James looked at her in surprise, then smiled. A smile so full of hope that Rebecca felt her heart skip a beat. After their picnic, they wandered through the park until they reached a small playground. Lily ran straight to the swings, and James followed to push her. "Higher!" she shouted between laughs. "I want to touch the sky." "Be careful not to fall," Rebecca warned automatically. "I won't fall," Lily insisted with absolute confidence. "Daddy is holding me." Everyone froze. It was the first time Lily had called James Daddy, and it came out so naturally, so spontaneously, that it felt as if it had always been that way. James looked at Rebecca, his eyes brimming with unspoken emotion, silently asking for permission. She simply nodded, unable to speak. Lily, sensing the sudden quiet, looked at them in confusion. "Did I do something wrong?" James knelt in front of her, holding her small arms gently. "No, sweetheart, you didn't do anything wrong. Actually," he glanced briefly at Rebecca, who gave him an encouraging nod. "Actually, you got it exactly right. I am your daddy, Lily." The girl frowned slightly, taking it in. "My real daddy? For real," he confirmed. "Why didn't anyone tell me before?" she asked with a child's innocent indignation. Rebecca joined them, kneeling by James's side. "It's complicated, love. When you were born, your daddy and we weren't together. And then, well, it took time for us to find each other again." Lily considered this, her small face serious. "But we're all together now, right? And we're staying together." Rebecca looked at James, seeing the same longing, the same need to reassure Lily. "We're working on it, sweetheart," Rebecca said honestly. "Your daddy and I are doing our best to be a family." "We already are a family," Lily corrected with the simple wisdom only children possess. "We just need to stick together." The simplicity of her confidence was moving. To Lily, it was obvious James would never let her fall. It never occurred to her to doubt that. Suddenly, Rebecca realized it was time she relearned that lesson, to trust again despite the risks, despite the scars of the past. When they returned home, Lily was worn out from playing and fell asleep almost immediately after her bath, without even needing a bedtime story. Rebecca stepped onto the balcony, where she found James gazing at the city lights. Without a word, she stood beside him, their arms almost touching. "Perfect day," he remarked after a moment. "Yes," she agreed. Then, summoning courage, and added, "Thank you." James looked at her curiously. "For what?" "For not giving up on us," she answered simply. "For giving us time, for never pushing." He smiled, meeting her gaze. "Some things are worth waiting for." Rebecca felt her throat tighten. She had so much she wanted to say, so many feelings piling up over the weeks. "I'm scared, James," she finally admitted in a near whisper. "Scared to trust, to open myself, to build something that might be broken again." James turned fully to face her, his eyes just as transparent as they'd always been. "I'm scared too," he confessed. "Scared I won't be the father Lily deserves, scared I'll repeat my own father's mistakes, scared of losing you two again." His vulnerability struck her deeply. It was easy to forget he was also navigating uncharted territory, full of doubts and insecurities. "How do we do this then?" she asked. "How do we move forward when we're both afraid?" James gently took her hands in his. "Day by day," he said simply. "Building trust in small moments, talking when doubts arise and not assuming the worst of each other, and most importantly, remembering that our love for Lily is stronger than any fear." Tears welled in Rebecca's eyes, but they weren't of sadness. They were tears of relief and hope. "I never stopped loving you," she admitted softly. "Even in the hardest moments, even when I tried to convince myself otherwise." James's eyes shone under the starlight. "And I could never love anyone else after you," he replied. "Believe me, I tried, but no one ever came close." Rebecca smiled through her tears. Slowly, as if learning to let go of years of defenses, she stepped forward and hugged James. He welcomed her with a sigh of relief, his strong arms enveloping her as though he never wanted to let go. They stayed like that for a long time, just feeling each other's presence, heart beating against heart. When they finally pulled apart, there was a new resolve in Rebecca's eyes. "Let's make this work," she said, not as a question, but as a promise. "For Lily." "For us, sir." James smiled. And in that smile, Rebecca saw the future they could build together. The next few weeks brought subtle but significant changes. Rebecca began searching for work, determined to regain her financial independence. James supported her wholeheartedly, using his contacts to help her get interviews at art galleries, the passion she'd set aside to make ends meet. One afternoon, she returned excited from an interview. "They offered me a job," she announced, barely containing her excitement. "Assistant curator at the Westbrook Gallery. It's not a big position, but it's a start." James hugged her, spinning her around. "That's fantastic. Westbrook has one of the best contemporary art collections in the city." Rebecca laughed, feeling a freedom she hadn't felt in years. Returning to the art world, her lifelong passion, had seemed impossible just a few months ago. Lily thrived at her new school, making friends and standing out in art. A source of pride for both her parents, her drawings now consistently featured three figures: Mommy, Daddy, and Lily, though they hadn't formally explained their relationship in detail. One evening after dinner, James suggested they go out, just the two of them. "We could try a restaurant, maybe catch a show," he proposed. "My assistant can stay with Lily." Rebecca hesitated. It would be their first date since reuniting. "Actually," she said slowly, "I think it's time we talk to Lily. About us. About you being her father." James's eyes widened, clearly not expecting that reply. "Are you sure?" he asked. "We don't have to rush." "I'm sure," Rebecca said firmly. "She already draws you as Daddy. I think, in her own way, she knows." They called Lily into the living room, where she came bouncing with energy despite a long school day. "We want to talk to you about something important," Rebecca began as the girl settled between them on the sofa. "Is it a surprise?" Lily asked, eyes shining. "Are we going on a trip or getting a dog?" James laughed softly. "Not quite, Princess. It's about family." "Our family," Rebecca added. Lily looked back and forth between them, suddenly serious. "Lily," Rebecca continued, choosing her words carefully, "you know every family is different, right? Some kids live only with Mom, others only with Dad. some with both together, others with grandparents. Lily nodded solemnly. Like Sophie, who has two mums, and Oliver, who lives with his grandma. Exactly, Rebecca smiled. Well, for a long time, it was just you and me. But the truth is, you've always had a daddy. He just wasn't here with us. Why? Lily asked, brow furrowed. He didn't like me. No, sweetheart, not at all, Rebecca rushed to clarify. He didn't even know about you. It was my mistake. I should have told him, but I didn't. James leaned forward, entering Lily's line of sight. What your mum is trying to say, Lily, is that I'm your dad. The girl's big green eyes widened, darting between the two adults. You're my daddy, she asked, her small voice shaky. My real daddy. For real, James said, emotion making his voice hoarse. If I'd known about you sooner, I would have been here every single day of your life. I'm so sorry I wasn't. Lily stayed quiet for a long moment, absorbing the news. Rebecca and James exchanged anxious looks, wondering if they'd made a mistake bringing it up so suddenly. Does that mean you won't go away again? She finally asked, looking directly at James. Never, he answered without hesitation. I'll never leave again, Lily. And will you be my daddy forever? Not just for a little while. Forever, he promised. Even when you grow up and think you don't need a dad anymore, even when you're an old lady with grey hair, I'll always be your dad. Lily nodded, as if confirming something she already sensed. Can I call you Daddy then? She asked. Instead of James. James felt a lump in his throat, too choked up to speak. He only nodded, tears threatening to spill. Without another word, Lily leaned in and hugged him with all the strength in her little arms. James enveloped her, closing his eyes as a single tear finally escaped. Rebecca watched, her own heart overflowing with emotion. For years, she had imagined this moment, both dreading and hoping for it. Reality was simpler and deeper than any scenario she'd pictured. Are you going to stay with us now? Lily asked, still hugging James, but looking at Rebecca. James gently pulled back, turning to face Rebecca as well. The question hung in the air, laden with meaning for everyone. James knelt by the sofa, holding Lily's small hands in his. If your mom says yes, he said softly, I'll never leave. His eyes locked with Rebecca's, conveying everything he felt, hope without pressure. The decision was hers, as it had always been. Rebecca felt certainty forming in her heart. Fear still lingered, and maybe always would. But for the first time in 5 years, love was stronger than fear. I think, she said, tears welling and a smile lighting her face, it's time for us to start over, together. Lily let out a squeal of delight and jumped, hugging them both at once. Rebecca and James laughed, wrapping their daughter in a group hug that held all the love in the world. Later that night, after Lily fell asleep happy and exhausted, Rebecca found James on the balcony again. This time, she walked up without hesitation and laced her fingers through his. Are you sure? He asked, as if afraid to believe his own good fortune. I've never been more sure of anything in my life, she answered. It took a while, but I finally realized that some things are worth the risk. Some people deserve a second chance, and some loves are too strong to be denied. James leaned in and kissed her softly, a kiss filled with regrets for lost time, gratitude for the present, and promises for the future. When they broke apart, Rebecca rested her head on his shoulder, gazing at the stars above. 5 years, she murmured. We lost so much time. We didn't lose it, James corrected, kissing the top of her head. It was the time we needed to become the right people for each other, the time we needed to be ready for this. Rebecca considered his words, finding truth in them. The James of 5 years ago wouldn't be the father Lily needed. The Rebecca of 5 years ago wouldn't have the strength to face the challenges that still lay ahead. Now what? She asked, looking at the future opening up before them. Now we live, he said simply. One day at a time, we make memories. We help Lily grow. We laugh. Maybe we even cry sometimes. But we do it all together. Rebecca smiled, feeling a peace she hadn't felt in years. For the first time in a long while, she wasn't afraid of the future, because this time, They were in it together, and together they could face anything. In the next room, Lily slept soundly, Mr. Bear and Miss Whiskers by her side like furry guardians of her dreams. On her peaceful face, a small smile, as if even in sleep she knew she finally had what she always wanted, a complete family. The next morning, before breakfast, Lily was already bent over her drawing table, tongue between her teeth in concentration. When Rebecca and James entered, still drowsy, she proudly held up her latest masterpiece. "Look," she exclaimed. "It's us." The picture showed 3 figures holding hands under a starry sky. Above them, in colorful, slightly crooked letters, were the words, "My family." Rebecca felt James take her hand and squeeze gently. They didn't need words. Some truths are so fundamental, so evident, they require no explanation. Like the fact that, despite all the detours and obstacles, they had finally found their way home. And home, as Lily so intuitively understood, wasn't a place. It was wherever they were together,